anything that's getting our dander up, you're worried about skydiving. Well, you got to get specific, really, because you can't answer those concerns until you get specific so that you can, visualize or train more or learn more information about it. And I think that's the key is to get really, down to what do I want to get good at so that I can, feel even more confident when I jump out of the airplane, or more importantly, as I put on the rig and walk out to an airplane with a hole in it, right? And, so that I can feel like this isn't a crazy thing. This is something
Yeah.
I am prepared for. You can't think of them all at once because your head will explode. And then you just break it down into the high-speed malfunction category. What's that like? It's the first thing you should be thinking about as you pull. I mean, I want you to visualize a beautiful opening, but I also want you to be thinking about that department of the malfunctions procedures. What if it's a pilot shoot and tow? What if I, can't initiate deployment? What if the pilot chute pulls the bag out, but it's, still in the bag? That's still a high-speed malfunction. A pilot chute does not slow you down very much. You can't flare it, And so having it very, very clear in your mind and keep the thought alive that whatever you're planning to do right now, let's say with a high-speed malfunction, whatever your training leads you to practice, it could evolve. As you continue skydiving, you may change and add on different caveats. But right now, I think it's really wise to keep it as simple as you need to, right? Don't oversimplify it, but keep it
Yeah.
simple enough that
It's simple, stupid.
well, that's the thing. I observe that when I'm really excited and things are happening super fast and I didn't expect it, I'm off, off balance. I'm a little stupid, and stupid is as stupid thinks. When your brain just draws a conclusion and is absolutely certain of something, it's probably wrong. And so I think it's always wise in those moments to recognize that the earth is not about to hit you. It might feel that way, but you have 2 or 3 seconds to just go, wait a minute. Is this what I initially thought? Because your initial thought in a malfunction situation is usually what, kind of your brain expecting the worst possible thing that it could be.
Yeah.
And that's rarely the case. And that's where that extra little buffer of time of the breath, go, all right, what did I miss? That's the zoom out. What did I miss? Maybe there's something else going on here that I didn't think
I
of.
like that. I like the zoom out that you just
Zoom
said.
out. And you can, kind of often I've dealt with many malfunctions that weren't what I thought initially. Um, and then that's where the intelligence comes back in, is in the space of your wondering beyond the initial certain judgment. Okay?
Yeah.
Judgment is what makes us stupid. That's the collapsing of your mind into a singular possible.
Yeah. And that's, I think, what's keeping me on the ground right now.
Well, I understand that. I get that.
How so?
Well, I think that when we judge everything as sort of probabilistic, in particular, when we think of it as a roll of the dice, it can be pretty scary. When you think, oh gosh, if something goes wrong, I'm going to panic. Maybe that one time that I remember myself panicking or freezing or overreacting, that's normal. But things will go well, not because of probabilities, but because you're there. Because your mind will be there exploring the possibilities, and everything that you've learned somehow is going to be there. As long as you have that sort of slowing down instinct built into you to breathe a little slower and relax your reactions, all the information that you've learned as a skydiving student, it'll be there. It's pretty damn incredible that the brain is capable of conjuring that. It just isn't there in that initial shock and awe. It doesn't necessarily happen on the second jump, but often that's the case where we start off either too terrified to leave the airplane, or we're the one that leaves the plane. And the one that leaves the plane, you're so intensely into the experience and you go into the program of the training, you just do it. It's not as bad as you expected usually, But the second jump, you have a more clarified vision of what could happen. You know more, going into it. And it's quite common that somewhere between, 2 and 10 jumps, it hits you like a boomerang in the back of the head. All this queued up possible scenarios in your mind all show up all at once. It's very common. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to be a badass skydiver, right? Don't judge yourself for the current state of mind. It's just a mindset. That's it. And it's a mindset that is built on thoughts that are yours. But you can divorce yourself of those thoughts as being part of you. They're just something that occurred as a natural defense mechanism. We all have it. Fear is a natural thing. It's designing, in its inception, is trying to protect you from doing something stupid. You know, it's like, your inner mommying. Everybody's got this like, careful, don't push it too hard. Everybody's got that overprotected mommy or grandma or grandpa or whatever, but it's a voice. And it doesn't mean it has to be defined as you within you. It can just be, thank you for sharing. You're not me. I'm the one that knows how to do this. And then you start making a list of all the things that you've done right, like you were doing, right? Things haven't gone badly because you made a number of good decisions. It wasn't luck that the
Yeah.
parachute, it wasn't luck that the parachute opened. It wasn't luck that you flared on time or made the correct series of turns to land on the target. It was not just a, roll of the dice. It was your consciousness being there. It was you soothing your adrenaline enough to operate properly, and remain aware of your surroundings. And that is there for you right now. And you just got to remember who you are.
That I can.
Yeah, it's true, right?
Yeah.
You know that if I strapped a rig on you right now and threw you out of the airplane, you'd be fine. You'd be fine. Yeah, everybody's got their story. You just got to get back to feeling the confidence by knowing who you are and also doing the work.
Yeah.
Doing all the work. You get back in that hanging harness. You put on that rig and walk around, touching your handles. You go to the mock-up and just hang out or sit in the airplane when it's not, flying loads. Just sit in that jump plane and hang out and see if you can become even more sort of at home in that environment over time. The smell of the airplane and all that stuff, so that it becomes an extension of you. The gear, the parachutes, the scene, walk out into the landing area and hang out. And people will ask you, so you go on this next load? No, I'm good. I'm just, kind of hanging out. And you don't have to make excuses. You do it your way. And it takes as long as it takes because it's up to you. I think that's really important to recognize that the abort button or the launch button is completely up to you.
Yeah.
Changes your perspective. There's no such thing as peer pressure if you don't let it in. Right.
I was once told as a student that you are personally responsible for your own skydive.
Yeah.
Whether it happens or not.
Yeah. If you think the winds are too strong for you, then you
Yep.
just say, no, no, I'm not getting on the plane.
Yep. And a certain percentage of them will totally support you, like, high five, good on you for making, a judgment call based on your feelings. And other people will not be so helpful. They're like, oh, come on. And they think they're being helpful. Come on, you'll be fine. Yeah, don't worry about it. Going on that attitude of when in doubt, push through your fear. That only works some of
And,
the time.
and sometimes, it can even happen in the plane at one point. You're like, I'm just not feeling this
Yep.
at all. I'm just going to move toward the front of the plane and keep my belt on and ride the plane back down.
Well, I suppose there's two different ways to construe all that, right? One is, gosh, I dodged a bullet. That would have been scary. That's option one with your thought system. Option two is, I got guidance, right? I listened to my guidance. I felt something that I couldn't put my finger on, and the outcome was I dodged a bullet with my choices. Now I have to recognize that there is a red light in my mind or in my body. And that means I also have to learn what a green light looks like. Because if you're stuck in red light, you don't get to do any jumping.
I
And
know. And like I am stuck in red light right now.
right. And so, but who turns that green light on?
Me?
It ain't me. You know, I will not throw you out of the plane. Oleg won't throw you out of an airplane. So it's got to
I
be
know.
your choice to recognize that there is a difference between a no and a yes. And when it's a yes, you got to go all in, you know, with a joyful expression of what that skydive could be, you know, where you don't go out with the fear, you go out with the full expectation that you're going to kick ass, that you're going to do it all just beautifully. And if something goes a little to the right or to the left during the process, you're just going to keep fixing it until there's nothing else to fix because that's who you
Yeah.
are. Internal locus of control. I think that is one of the most important, you know, valuable assets for a skydiver to know when you want to do it and when you don't want to do it. You know, what is a reasonable risk that you feel like you can control based on your understanding, your knowledge of self, and your ability to slow down your breathing when you need to, so that you can handle increased complexity. Because there's no bad skydives, there's just more complicated ones.
Yeah.
Well, and how are you feeling? I mean, suppose you've had this smacking day where you've put in 10 jumps and they want you to get on that last one and you're just like, I'm tired.
Yep. Oh, listen to that one,
Yeah.
I'm
right?
tired.
Listen
I'm
to the
just
one
not.
where I'm just physically tired. Don't make
Yeah.
Yeah.
that jump. Don't make
So
that jump. Right? You can skip as many loads as you want. You can, you know, go on every seventh load so that you can take a walk in the forest barefoot in between each jump if you wish. If I make two or three jumps in a day, they'll be blissful and perfect, and I'll walk out to the airplane slowly, you know? And I like it better this way, honestly. I like the slowness because we're more aware.
like stop and smell the roses kind of thing.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's because then you're not just taking an air bath. That's what Tamara Coyne used to call it, where
Yeah.
you jump out of the plane, you didn't learn anything, you land safe, and like what just happened, other than me needing to pack again. And if we come into it with a little more, you know, sort of awareness due to the slower experience, we're going to pick up more. We're going to be noticing as we exit the, you know, the angles. We're going to notice how we stepped off and the consequences of it so that we can inform ourselves for the future. Do I want to do it again like that, or do I want to do it differently? And, you know, give your full attention to that new visualization instead of the repetition of the one in your mind of like, oh, that it went like this, it went like this. Yeah, but you don't want to do that again.
Like less of a machine and more of a getting an actualization of the feel
Yeah, human.
of
We're,
it.
we're humans.
Yeah.
We got to do things humanly. Yeah, and that does require many layers, you know, a holistic approach, I think, to safe skydiving. That requires you to pay attention to what you're eating and drinking and how you're moving. Are you doing, you know, stretches and yoga in between jumps? Are you stopping and closing your eyes and visualizing the entirety of that skydive? Or are you just focusing on running to the plane and, you know, putting your gear on? Running to the plane twice because you forgot your helmet, you know?
Almost like meditating before you even manifest
I
kind of.
do.
Yeah, I know. I've met people that do that, and it's not a bad idea.
We do it your way. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, there's different versions of that, but at the very least, recognizing that if you slow down and see it in your mind, it's far more likely to occur the way that you desire. You know,
Yeah.
but you got to get yourself in that mindset so that the natural process is compatible. You know, when you jump out of the plane, it feels the way you intended it to feel, graceful, you know, smooth with full awareness of not just the outer situation, but what it feels like in your body as you're moving in balance towards the door, smiling at people, making eye contact with everybody, you know, and then hopefully the kind of skydiving that I hope people work towards is not just being very fastidious about your own gear and your own trip, your own seatbelt that you got to take off. I hope people work towards being the eyes and ears of that load.
Yeah.
Everybody, other people's seatbelts,
Looking,
other people's chest straps, bringing up the level of safety because you give a shit about them too.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
They're your
That's
peeps.
always like the mindset too, on top of it. Like something, say something type of thing of
It is.
community and the
You,
camaraderie and looking out for one another. Always.
you
Yes.
can't worry about yourself as much when you're worried about other people too. Because
Hmm.
the fear mindset in my experience is a little selfish. It's not personal. It's just something that occurs when somebody's really worried. You're in, attack, retreat, and hide. That's where the mind goes. It goes into the old brain structures, not the new ones. You know, and so therefore we have to soothe ourselves into being that larger form of ourselves that is helping instead of worrying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
why coaching's so good. That's why, your future will be a great coach because the path that you lived in this brief lapse of you worrying about whether you can or can't. This phase is going to make you a much better teacher because you've experienced it. You can have compassion for that worried person that you're going to be sitting next to at the picnic table in 2 years' time, or maybe less, who's like, staring at their phone or all worried. Like, so you're waiting to go? Like, yeah, kind of nervous. And you're the giver of kindness in that moment that reminds them that they know how to do it.